Hello, and welcome to verse 7 of the Tao Te Ching. Heaven is eternal. The earth endures. The reason for heaven's eternity and earth's endurance is that they do not live for themselves only, and thereby live forever. The sage steps back but remains in front. The outsider always within. Self is realized through selflessness. So heaven is eternal, the earth endures. So I think this means that heaven is the eternal expansiveness, and the earth is the receptor of this expansiveness. The earth is carved by heaven. Whoa. Yeah, truly the earth is carved into existence by heaven, because the heaven is eternal and the earth merely stays and endures, and that's what creates this form, this physical realm created by the fucking heavens. Wow. The reason for heaven's eternity, so the reason heaven is eternal and expanding, and earth's endurance. So the reason of that, the reason that earth is eternal, and that heaven, and that the reason that heaven is eternal and earth endures, is that they do not live for themselves only. The reason for heaven's eternity and earth's endurance is that they do not live for themselves only, and thereby live forever. Right, so they're able to coexist because they don't. Heaven is not just eternal for its own sake, because it has a purpose of carving earth. And earth does not just exist because it wants to, it has a purpose of receiving heaven. So they do not live by them for themselves only. Right. So the reason they can exist and the reason they are such a magnificent thing is because they're providing service to one another. They're cohabiting. They are yin and yang. They are opposites. And thereby live forever. So in doing this, they live forever. They do not live for themselves only, and because of this, they can exist, and they live forever. So they're eternally being selfless. They're eternally being a service to one another. Yeah. The sage steps back but remains in front. The sage steps back. So the sage recognizes that he is not the most important thing, but he remains in front because he is guiding the way. The sage steps back, so he steps out of the light. Like he recognizes that it's not just about him. And in doing so, he illuminates himself. Whoa. Yeah, so it's can be compared back to heaven is eternal. The sage steps back. The sage is heaven. The earth endures. But he remains in front. Okay. The outsider always within. So he is an outsider. And he's outside because he's the sage. He's the one. He's in charge, but at the same time he steps back. So he is an outsider, but at the same time he's always within himself. The outsider. And I also think that can mean that he's the outsider. So the world outside of him, the outsider. Anything that is outside himself is always actually within. So it's everything always coming from within. Self is realized through selflessness. Self is realized through selflessness. So again, it's this duality. This passage seems to be really focused on the duality of the heaven, like the formless, actually creating and in relationship with the form. So heaven is eternal, the earth endures. Self is realized through selflessness. So in order to fully, to be self-actualized, to realize yourself, you have to actually perform acts of selflessness. Because heaven is eternal by being selfless. And the earth endures by knowing that when it endures, it performs a service for others. So you're actually realizing yourself by being selfless, by doing that service, by knowing that what you do has value, by giving your value, by giving the Tao. By giving that Tao, by offering the Tao, you're actually recognizing yourself and offering yourself. Cool. Well, that was an interesting passage. Very powerful, very much about as within, so without, very much about contrast. Seems to be an allowing and a recognition of something greater than oneself, and that being greater than oneself has this deep value, which actually creates something out of what you offer. Okay, cool. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe.
Thanks, Steve.
Go ahead and leave a comment. And we'll check y'all later. Peace out.